Welcome to The Foundry by Forge College. Today, we're diving into a piece of engineering that, honestly, kind of keeps me up at night. We are implementing emergency stop patterns. Just picture this for a second. You've built this flawless, automated machine on the blockchain, and then boom, a zero-day exploit hits. You can't just run over and yank the power cord out of the wall, right? The blockchain doesn't work like that. We absolutely need a panic button. So, let's build one.
Now, if you remember our previous lesson, we spent a lot of time designing role-based access control. We set up governors, pausers, and keepers. And hey, that's great for keeping out your everyday bad actors. But what if an exploit completely bypasses all of that? You need a concrete mechanism to just immediately halt the bleeding.
So here is our blueprint for today's explainer. 1. The need for panic buttons. 2. Circuit breakers versus time locks. 3. Coding the emergency stop. 4. Testing defense mechanisms. And 5. Governance trade-offs. Let's jump right in.
Section 1. The need for panic buttons, limiting the blast radius. Look, when a smart contract is actively under attack, time is literally your worst enemy. Every single second that ticks by is another block validated and potentially another massive drain of your funds.
Enter the circuit breaker pattern. You can think of this as a contract-level failsafe that immediately halts critical functions to reduce damage during an incident. Imagine you're driving a speeding train and you suddenly see the bridge ahead is completely washed out. You don't call a committee meeting, right? No way. You pull the emergency brake. This pattern acts as that giant red stop button wired directly into the core logic of your smart contract.
Moving on to Section 2. Circuit breakers versus time locks. Speed versus security. In our toolkit, we essentially have two main failsafes to handle a crisis, and they serve very different operational purposes.
There is this incredible tension between these two tools. A simple circuit breaker is basically an immediate on and off toggle. It's fast and it's brutal. But a time-locked pause actually forces a waiting period before you can resume operations. Now, you might be wondering, why on earth would we want a delay? Well, because if a malicious actor somehow compromises your system, you definitely don't want them to be able to instantly unpause the contract and just continue their attack. The time lock trades the sheer convenience of a quick fix for the rock-solid security of a mandatory waiting period. It buys your human monitors the time they actually need to react.
Section 3. Coding the emergency stop, modifiers, and state flags. If you've been following along with our smart contract wallet with multisig track, you know we absolutely love clean code. An emergency stop needs to be dirt simple. Complex code has bugs, and man, the absolute last thing you want is a bug inside your panic button.
So the checklist is beautifully minimal. 1. A simple true or false paused flag. 2. An only pauser modifier, so not just anyone can walk up and smash the button. And 3. A when not paused modifier glued directly to your critical functions. With this setup, if the system is paused, any malicious transaction trying to sneak through just bounces right off.
But how do we actually recover? Well, that's where unpause available at comes in. This is a Unix timestamp. Instead of just flipping a switch back to unpaused, we mathematically schedule the unpause in the future. The smart contract basically checks if the current block timestamp is greater than or equal to this exact number. If it isn't, the unpause fails. It's that simple.
And to leave a rock-solid paper trail, we have to omit events, specifically paused, unpaused scheduled, and unpaused. We're not just doing this to make the code look pretty. Off-chain monitors are watching these specific events like hawks, so they can detect an incident in real time and immediately alert your security team.
Section 4. Testing your defense mechanisms, proving the failsafes. Because writing the code is really only half the battle. We're going to jump into Hard Hat's local network for this, because, well, you never want to test your emergency brakes for the first time while you're speeding down the highway. Okay, here is exactly how the test flows. First, someone calls a critical action, and it succeeds. Second, our authorized pauser slams the pause function. Finally, an attacker tries to call the critical action again, and bam, reverted. Shut down entirely. Our modifier intercepts the transaction and just kills it on the spot. When you pull up your test logs, you are looking for one beautiful word, paused. Seeing this exact revert message is the absolute proof that your circuit breaker did its job. If you do not see this specific message, your modifier is either missing entirely or it's misconfigured. Next up, we have to test the recovery. But how do we test a time lock without literally waiting around for hours?
Well, the beauty of our local hard hat environment is that we can actually cheat time. Step 1, the pauser schedules the unpause using a timestamp from the past. Step 2, the pauser calls unpause, which succeeds immediately because the mathematical time condition is already met. Step 3, we call the critical action, and it succeeds again. Just like that, operations are restored.
Section 5. Governance and security trade-offs. Who holds the key? We've built the mechanical code for sure, but now we have to deal with the absolute messiest part of engineering: human beings. It all boils down to 3 core principles. First, you have to separate your powers. Pausing should be incredibly fast, just one signature. But unpausing? Actually scratch that. Unpausing demands a multisig consensus. You have to prevent a single rogue actor from taking over. Second, you must emit those observable events. And third, intentionally balance your operational speed against the risk of an attack by properly utilizing those time locks.
Which brings us to a golden rule. Treat the pause control as a last resort tool. Look, a panic button is an absolutely incredible failsafe, but it does not excuse you from writing heavily audited code in the first place. You never want to build a system that constantly relies on the emergency brake just to function safely.
So, I'll leave you with this question. Are your multisig's emergency controls actually ready to survive a rigorous security audit? In our next explainer, we're diving into security audit methods and checklists to try and break the very logic we just built today. Thank you so much for exploring this with me. To truly master these concepts, head over to forge.college. Keep building, stay secure, and I'll see you in the next explainer.